Okay, so we all know the iPhone, right?
Well,
You use one, I use one. It's like we can't live without them these days. But did you ever stop to think about all the legal stuff, like how its design is actually protected?
interesting point.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do today, like a deep dive into the world of design patents.
Sounds good.
And specifically, we're going to be looking at one very important patent. It's USD 672,769S.
Okay.
This is the patent that basically shaped how the iPhone looks, its whole visual identity.
Right. Makes sense.
And this design patent, it was granted in December 2012, and you know what it's called,
What's it called?
electronic device.
Electronic device. Just like that.
Yep.
Huh. That's pretty simple for such a complex design, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, totally. You wouldn't guess it's for the iPhone just from the title.
Right, exactly. And speaking of interesting things, there's this long list of inventors on the patent.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Even Steve Jobs is on there.
See, that's something you don't see every day. Having so many inventors on a design patent, it's kind of unusual.
So what do you make of that?
Well, I think it shows just how collaborative the design process was at Apple.
Ah, I see.
Like all these different experts coming together, combining their knowledge to create the, I guess you could say, iconic look of the iPhone.
Interesting. And get this patent is actually part of a whole series.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a continuation of earlier applications going all the way back to January 2007.
Wow, 2007. So that tells us they were working on this design for a while.
Yeah, it's like they were refining it over and over again for years.
Exactly. Each application building on the last one. Imagine all the feedback and changes that went on behind the scenes.
Yeah, fascinating. It's like seeing the rough drafts of a masterpiece before it's finished.
That's a great way to put it. But to really understand the design, we got to look at the visuals.
Right. The patent has all these detailed figures.
Yeah, showing the iPhone from every angle. Front, back, top, bottom, the sides, everything.
And those are super important in a design patent.
Oh, absolutely. They give you the complete picture, of what they're actually trying to protect.
And you'll notice some of the lines in the figures are solid and some are broken.
Right, and that's not by accident. The broken lines, those indicate elements that are not part of the claim design.
So they're not trying to protect every little detail.
No, it's more about the overall look.
The ornamental design.
Yeah, the unique visual elements, the things that make the iPhone instantly recognizable, you know what I mean?
Makes sense.
And all of that, the core of the protection, it's all laid out in the patent's claims section.
Okay, what does it say?
It's pretty straightforward, actually. It says, and I quote, "The ornamental design of an electronic device as shown and described."
Seems pretty simple.
Yeah, but don't be fooled. There's a lot of legal weight behind those words. That single claim, it covers the entire visual design shown in those figures.
Wow, so it's like a powerful statement saying they own the iPhone's look and feel.
Exactly. It's their aesthetic essence, and they're claiming it.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. The references cited section.
Ah, yes. The reference.
There's a whole list of other patents in there, foreign patents too, and all kinds of publications. It's surprisingly long.
I know, right? It's like a treasure trove of information.
But why so many references?
Well, it gives you valuable insights into the design process.
I see.
It shows that the iPhone inventors, they didn't just work in a bubble.
Right, they were aware of what was already out there.
Exactly, and they probably drew inspiration from a whole range of existing designs and technologies.
It's like a family tree of design ideas leading up to the iPhone.
That's one way to look at it. And some of the references are pretty unexpected.
Like what?
Well, there's a patent from 1947.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, and then you've got e-fashion magazines from China. That's pretty interesting.
Definitely not what I would have expected.
Right. So let's start with that early patent. I mean, 1947, that seems so unrelated to the iPhone, but it could have elements or principles, that actually influence specific parts of the iPhone's design.
Interesting.
It just goes to show that innovation often builds on what came before, sometimes in surprising ways.
Okay.
And then you have those e-fashion magazines. What do you think those tell us?
Well, maybe that the iPhone wasn't just about the technology.
Right.
Like they were also thinking about aesthetics, capturing a certain look and feel that would appeal to people.
Exactly. They were tapping into those trends, what people were into. It was about more than just functionality.
Yeah, it's a product of its time, you could say. And then there are references to competitors.
Oh, yeah, like the LG Prada and the Samsung F700.
Both known for their sleek designs and touchscreens.
Right. They were definitely aware of what their rivals were doing.
It was a competitive landscape, for sure.
It always is.
And then there are references to older technologies.
Like the Palm Z22 and the IPAQ.
Yeah, those were popular before smartphones took over.
Remember those? little pocket-sized devices.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how the iPhone, revolutionary as it was, it's still built upon what came before it.
It took those concepts that people were already familiar with and, like, refined them.
Exactly. Made the transition to this new technology feel more natural, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense. So we see this references cited section going on and on. What do you make of that?
I think it shows just how thorough Apple was in their design process.
They weren't messing around.
No, not at all. They were doing their research, studying everything they could, looking for inspiration and figuring out what worked, what didn't.
Like a huge library of design knowledge.
Yeah, and they used it to create something truly groundbreaking. So let's dive into some of these references.
Okay, yeah, let's pick a few.
Okay. One that caught my eye was the mobile pen.
Mobile pen.
Yeah. It was this device, way before the iPhone. And get this, it had a touch screen,
Oh, wow.
but it used a stylus.
Interesting.
So even back then, designers were already playing around with touch screens, right?
Yeah, but they hadn't quite figured out the whole finger thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can see how Apple considered different input methods, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately went with the capacitive touchscreen, the one we all know and love.
Makes you wonder what could have been.
Right. Okay, here's another one. The iHolic HTV200.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it was a portable media player from South Korea, came out before the iPhone, and guess what?
Right.
It had a rectangular shape, rounded corners, kind of like the iPhone, actually.
So the iPhone shape wasn't totally unique.
Well, it's interesting, right? It shows how design trends, they kind of travel across the world.
Yeah, ideas can come from anywhere.
Exactly. Okay, this next one's a bit different.
Okay.
It's an article from 2003.
An article.
Yeah, it's called A Day in the Life of Infolink.
Infolink. What's that?
So it wasn't about a specific device. It was more about this concept of like an information network, accessible anywhere, anytime.
Okay. To some level, you're right.
Yeah, kind of like what Steve Jobs talked about with the iPhone. Right, like a device that connects you to the world.
A gateway.
Exactly. It's not just about the phone itself. It's about how it fits into this bigger picture,
Yeah, it's part of a whole ecosystem.
Okay, how about a smartphone this time?
All right, let's hear it.
The Nokia N92 came out in 2005.
Okay, yeah, I remember Nokia.
It had a slide-out keyboard, and they really pushed the whole multimedia thing with it.
Right.
So you can see how Apple was looking at all kinds of smartphones, even the ones that weren't direct competition.
Taking notes, so to speak.
Yeah, they were studying the whole landscape, trying to learn from everyone's successes and failures.
That's smart. Okay, let's go way back now.
All right, how about 1993?
1993.
Wow.
The Toshiba Dynapad T100X Pen computer.
What was that?
It was an early tablet computer.
A tablet. Back then.
Yep, pen-based, though.
So even back then, there were ideas about touch and tablet-like devices.
Right, and those ideas eventually led to the iPhone and, of course, the iPad later on.
So it wasn't all brand new, the iPhone. No, it's more like a long evolution.
Building on what came before.
Exactly. Okay, this next one is about how people interact with digital content.
Okay.
It's from 2004.
Right.
The radial scroll tool. Scrolling support for stylus or touch-based document navigation. That's the title.
A mouthful. So it's about scrolling.
Yeah. They were exploring new ways to use touch input, to interact with stuff on a screen.
So the iPhone's multi-touch interface, all those gestures we use, that's what they're getting at.
You got it. They were pushing the boundaries of how we interact with technology,
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about the hardware, right? It was also about the software.
Right, the whole experience.
Making it intuitive, engaging. All right, ready for a curveball?
Sure, yeah, me.
A Whirlpool Gold. GH720A XRS 2.0 COS. Velos Speed Cook over-the-range microwave oven.
Wait, a microwave? What's a microwave doing in the iPhone's patent?
Well, think about it. Control panels, interfaces, even materials, right? Maybe they got some ideas from unexpected places.
Who would have thought? Inspiration can come from anywhere.
Right. You never know. Okay, another one that might seem a bit out there.
Okay.
The Microsoft Mira eHome wireless smart display.
Microsoft.
Yeah, from 2003. It was a wireless touchscreen display.
For the home.
Yeah, an early attempt at that kind of thing.
So Apple was already thinking about touchscreens beyond just phones.
It seems that way. They were seeing the potential, right?
Yeah.
Touch screens everywhere.
And now we have them everywhere. All right, let's bring it back to something a bit more familiar.
Sounds good. How about the Palm Z22? Remember that one?
Yeah,
It
vaguely.
was a PDA, came out in 2005. Pretty slim, affordable,
Right.
known for being simple, easy to use.
Okay.
So you can see maybe Apple was looking at that and thinking about user-friendliness,
Yeah,
accessibility, important lessons for the iPhone.
absolutely. Even those older devices, they had something to teach.
Right. And last but not least, the IPAQ.
Ah, the IPEQ. Those were powerful little machines.
Yeah, Hewlett-Packard made them pocket PCs, they called them.
Lots of features, lots of apps.
Right. So Apple was definitely looking at those, studying the operating systems, what kind of apps were out there.
Trying to figure out how to make something even better.
Exactly. And I think they succeeded, wouldn't you say? The iPhone, with its App Store and all those apps, it really took things to a whole new level.
It's pretty amazing, right? How the iPhone's design, it's like connected to all this tech history.
Yeah, totally. It's like a culmination of everything that came before.
And the references cited section, it really shows that.
It's like a roadmap showing how design and innovation, they kind of evolve over time.
The iPhone didn't just appear out of nowhere.
No, it was built on all this prior art like we've been talking about.
Drawing from all these different sources.
Some obvious, some totally unexpected.
And we can't forget about the patents journey.
Yeah.
All those different applications.
Right. Starting back in 2007, that shows how dedicated they were to getting the design just right.
It's like they were constantly refining it, tweaking it, making sure every detail was perfect.
Yeah, and you can see that attention to detail in the patents figures, too.
Yeah, those are super precise.
All those lines, irritations, they really define the scope of the design.
And those broken lines, they're important too.
Oh, yeah, they tell you what's not being claimed.
So the patent isn't too broad, right?
Exactly. They're only protecting the unique ornamental parts of the iPhone's design.
So it's more complex than it looks at first glance.
Definitely. It's a carefully crafted document.
It shows how a design patent can protect a product's visual identity, especially in a competitive market like tech.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways for you?
Well, I think it's important to remember that innovation, it's rarely a solo act.
Right, it's more like a team effort.
Yeah, it's about collaboration, learning from what others have done, both the good and the bad.
Taking those ideas and pushing them further.
Exactly. And the iPhone's design is a perfect example of that. It's like a blend of so many different influences.
Yeah, we've seen that in the references.
And the patent itself, it gives us this peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, into the design process.
How these iconic products, they come to be.
It's pretty inspiring, actually. Makes you appreciate the objects we use every day, all the thought and effort that went into them.
I hope so. And I hope it encourages people to keep exploring,
Exploring what?
the design stories behind everyday things. There's a lot to uncover, a lot to learn.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure. Always happy to talk design.
And thanks to everyone listening. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.